Hey everybody, my name's Yvonne Villarreal and I cover TV here at the LA Times. And joining me today is the man who will do more than just give you your key when you're checking in. It's Tom Hiddleston, who you'll know from The Night Manager, which appeared stateside on AMC. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, first, congratulations. You're obviously here because you're an Emmy contender. You're up for an Emmy next month. It's already next month.
Yeah, it's coming up quickly, isn't it?
It's like crazy.
Yeah.
And from what I know, you found out after watching Ghostbusters?
Yeah, that's true. Well, I was in Australia, which is almost an entire day and a half ahead, and think it is a day, it's just under 24 hours ahead, 17 hours ahead or something. And I'm in Australia shooting Thor Ragnarok, and Chris Hemsworth, who, for those of you who don't know, he plays Thor in the Thor movies. He's in Ghostbusters, and he hosted a screening for us locally, and so I just got back in the house. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I got a couple of text messages on my phone letting me know that I'd won an Emmy. I was nominated for an Emmy. Yeah.
You thought they were asking you how the film was?
Yeah, I was like, why is my phone going off? It's 1 in the morning.
What did you think of Ghostbusters?
I thought it was great. I thought it was great. Yeah. I mean, I'm in the sweet spot because that was one of the originals were my favorite films when I was growing up. So if I just so much as hear the theme tune, I get excited. And
do you dance? I know you're a dancer. Do you dance when you hear the theme? Not so much? A wiggle, a shake?
The inside, yeah. But I thought it was great. I thought it was I thought it honoured the original as well as being completely fresh. And all four of them, I thought, the Ghostbusters were just great.
I want you next to do a movie with Leslie. Please.
That would be so fun.
Please.
I thought she was terrific.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's now a correspondent for the Olympics, apparently. But
I heard that.
Yeah. Good for her.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've Googled your name recently.
No, I haven't done that.
I did today.
Okay.
I didn't know your Night Manager role has already gotten you an award, which was for Rear of the Year for your sex scene with Elizabeth.
Yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true.
Is this like bucket list?
I mean,
award?
I didn't know it was a bucket list. I didn't know it was going to be on the bucket list until it happened. I'm just happy it happened. Do you know what I mean? I'm happy that that's something that's come into my life in a way that I didn't expect. And
you didn't have anything prepared though.
No, sometimes the universe hands you something on a plate which you didn't expect. Yes. And for me, it was a Rear of the Year award.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
it's
very
a
proud
good one to
of it.
take.
Yeah.
Not many of us can have it.
Yeah.
So good for you.
My parents are very proud.
Well, let's talk about how you came to find yourself on The Night Manager. How did it come to you, and had you read the novel previously?
So it came to me. I was in Toronto in the spring of 2014, making Crimson Peak with Guillermo del Toro. So I think this is March 2014, and I read the first episode. It literally crossed my desk. It was 60 pages, and it was one of those, those moments that actors sometimes talk about, which was incredibly exciting. The way the first episode was written was very tight, and Pine was such a fascinating prospect. I felt like I immediately understood him. I knew how to play him, and then it was about trying to find out how I could be involved, and meeting Simon Cornwell and Stephen Cornwell, who are John le Carré's sons, and they run a company called the Ink Factory. And just asking to do it, basically. So that's when I signed on, and it was the same time as Hugh Laurie playing Roper. Both of us jumped on together. So yeah, very exciting.
Well, and talk about playing opposite Hugh, who's supposed to be like the worst man in the world and does it very well.
Yes, he does.
Very well.
Yeah.
How did that help you in terms of getting into, what work went into getting into the psyche of Jonathan for you, and how did playing opposite Hugh help you?
Well, Hugh is so far from being the worst man in the world that you could imagine.
Yeah.
He's the nicest man in the world and also the funniest man in the world. And sometimes keeping a straight face on set with him is a challenge. But it was. What did I do really? I read the book from cover to cover over and over and over again. The book is such an extraordinary mine for Pine and his psyche, because he's a very watchful, quiet character that's always bubbling away with some kind of interior anger and intensity. And the book has, Le Carré really takes you inside his head, and so that was very useful for me. I did actually spend a night at the Rosewood Hotel in London.
You did.
As the night manager, which I found fascinating.
Tell me why. What was that process like? Seeing how they do their job efficiently and what's required of them.
It's interesting, just the nature of service. That they are so committed to service.
Yeah.
Everyone I met behind the front desk, immaculately turned out, impeccable manners, so deferential and so efficient, capable of doing all kinds of practical things. And also I learned about that particular hotel and many hotels is that it is a bit like the theatre, and that there is a sort of a stage and there's a behind the scenes, and those two things are completely different, you know.
Did you witness any chaos that they were trying to like?
There was a really interesting night. There was a wedding taking place in the ballroom in the basement, and they were all having a fantastic time and dancing and playing loud music. And there were some complaints from the first floor that the music was too loud. Both guests
I would
at
be
the
that person. Yeah.
But both guests at the hotel, and so the night manager is called upon to be diplomatic with both groups of people. I found that really fascinating. Yeah.
How about, the first episode, we're sort of introduced to Jonathan. He's like just walking like calmly and coolly through the streets of, as like this uprising's happening.
Yeah.
He just goes straight in. Talk about what the direction you were given for that scene, and just how many takes did that take? Was it fairly quickly?
It was quite quick, but it was actually thrilling. And that played into this, I hope, a sense that in that moment you see that Pine has a capability in extremis that's beyond conventional. And that's, I hope, where you suggest that this is a man who was a soldier in the British Army, someone who's actually used to a measure of the soldier's composure in a high-stress environment. And that actually someone who has served for as long as he has is able to calm himself and be capable. And it's very clear in the writing of the novel that that's who he is. He's had a particular training which allows him to keep his head when all around him are losing theirs. And it's such a brilliant introduction, I think, to him, is to sort of see this man. And those, by the way, those uprisings in Cairo in 2011, I watched huge amounts of documentary footage of those things. They were really fiery and dangerous. The people were rising up to bring down what they saw as a tyrannical regime.
Right.
So it was strangely very exciting. We shot in Marrakesh in Morocco, and we had 350, 500 extras, and they loved recreating this stuff because it just happened.
Right.
Egypt isn't far away, and they all remembered it.
Right.
And they learned the appropriate chants, which were supposedly to bring about the demise of Hosni Mubarak. And there was a car on fire and explosions that were rigged at various points. I mean, it was just me and the camera operator. And it was quite thrilling, weirdly.
Was that the first scene you shot? Or
No. The first scene we shot was with Olivia Colman in Switzerland in the Alps. Yeah.
Oh my God, I was going to talk to you about the shooting locations. I have a friend that's from Switzerland, and whenever he shows me photos of like his mom's view from the backyard, I'm just like, why am I here? How was that? Like having that as a backdrop?
It was. We scheduled it as what they call a pre-shoot. So actually, we were starting on a Monday in London, but we went to Zermatt on the Wednesday, and we shot Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And it was extraordinary because the Matterhorn is such an iconic landmark in the world, and it was at the background of every shot. And you never quite know if you're shooting in the mountains if the weather's going to behave.
Right.
The sun was high, the sky was blue. It could not have been more perfect, and it was
Immaculate,
such a
probably,
yeah. It was an amazing introduction for all of us. You know, a new crew, a new cast, just to be in the mountains and starting like that. It was very fortuitous.
Well, that's great that you started with Olivia, because can we talk about Olivia Colman?
Yeah, we can.
Like,
yeah,
she's amazing.
she's amazing.
I fell in love after seeing Broadchurch, but
Yeah.
talk about, like, because her role was originally in the book. It's a man, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's written as a man, and I think it was the idea of Stephen Garrett, one of our producers, and Susanna Bier, our director, that our adaptation had to reflect the modern world.
Yeah.
Just had to be. And John le Carré himself said it's much more likely that her position in the Secret Service would be filled by a woman now, whereas when he wrote the book in the early 90s, perhaps it was more of a male-dominated world. But she brings such a incredible energy and compassion to that role, and I can't imagine it now being a man. Somehow, I think it's so important that she's a woman.
Right.
And the story of her pregnancy is so great because she just was pregnant, and as Susanna Bier had said, you know, I want this character to be played by a woman, and I've got a very short list. It's got one name on it. The name is Olivia Colman, and so they met, and Olivia said, "I've got something to tell you," and Susanna said, "Well, what is that?" And she said, I'm pregnant, I'm afraid. So she was like, "Okay, we'll just use it." And what I love about that is that it's just a statement of fact. That the pregnancy is just it's not, and it doesn't further the story in any way. She's just a pregnant woman, and it
doesn't handicap her.
Yeah, it doesn't handicap her. I think it's I just think it's a wonderful characterization, and she really is the heart of the story in so many ways. The power of that speech in, I think it's episode 4, where she talks about the school sports day and her motivation for bringing Roper down, and the power of her fury that men like him are allowed to exist. I think it's one of the most powerful scenes in the series.
Well, and for you, I mean, Jonathan takes on, like, what, 4 different identities?
Yeah.
3 different identities. How was that for you, sort of navigating his journey between the different personas? And, like, I mean, I think on some level we all sort of are different people around who we are, but how was that challenge for you?
It's a really good question. And Susanna and I used to think about that a lot. The whole story it could be read as a discussion about identity, and perhaps even identity within being English. You know, it's so much about Englishness, and I think Pine and Burr's anger is that Roper is doing these terrible things and is betraying his country with his indecency and malevolence. And I think the fascinating thing about Pine is I feel like he was almost, at the beginning, he's a shell of a human. He's a shell of a man. He's hiding. He was of military service in Iraq as a British soldier, and he's now of service in another way as a night manager. He's hiding behind uniform, and in that regard, the uniform protects him from having to reveal his identity. And I think Sophie reveals himself to himself. I mean, he loves her, and then having to submerge himself into different identities is really I mean, you think about the best liars are the people who believe their own lies. And Susanna and I wanted to find a way of showing that Pine was so deep undercover that he was almost getting lost inside the cover, that maybe there's a part of him that loves Roper and loves being around him and loves the lifestyle that's available.
Yeah, there's a part of him, I think she says it's a psychopath.
That's right. Yeah. There's half a psychopath lurking in there. But that's what I loved about playing it, is sort of hoping that the audience would question to what extent Pine is lost.
Right.
But I always knew inside it where he was, because the power of his anger is too great.
Yeah. Because who is Jonathan to you? Is Jonathan the closest to who you think he is? I mean, I know that's his name, but like, who do you think really is closest to him in the different personas that he assumes?
That's so interesting. I think he's Jonathan Pine. I think, but I think what happens when he creates those other identities, Jack London or Thomas Quince or Andrew Birch, they bring out other aspects of his character that perhaps Andrew Birch is very charming and almost he's an extrovert. He wears beautiful suits. He's the front man of the operation, and that's what Roper wants. He wants this impeccably charming, charismatic, witty man to be his front man. But Pine has more edge, I think, and he's more intelligent. It's interesting. I think Pine at the end of episode 6 is very different from the Pine you meet at the beginning of episode 1.
Do you think you could have done what Pine did? I mean, if I was put in that situation, I think I would have like a 30-minute phone call with my mom. Like, would Pine just like go? I mean, would you just go for it the way Pine did, put your life on the line like that, and feel like, okay, I can do this. I can be this person, these other people.
Yeah, I don't think I could. I think he does something extraordinarily brave, which is essentially to agree to sell his life away, to sell his identity, because there's no way, even at the end of the first season, that he can go back to being a normal human being.
Right.
He's on every watch list now, and so he surrenders his identity in service of this higher cause, and that obligation means living without the privilege of intimate relationships, having no shoulder to cry on, no one to tell your story, no one to be intimate with in any way.
Right.
And I don't know that any of us, I don't think very, very few people in the world are capable of that. I find that very moving, actually.
Really?
I find that bravery and courage incredibly romantic. So that he chooses to live without the things that we all take for granted, which is a name and security, and he just is surviving on his wits. Yeah.
How was it shooting the series? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of like the confrontation scenes that you have with Hugh, like, were done even before you guys really like developed, the characters really developed a rapport, right? Like everything was stitched together later?
Yes, well, we shot episodes 1, 5 and 6 were mostly shot in Morocco. So most of the stuff between me and Hugh at the end was done before the bonding in Mallorca, as it were, which came after.
So was it hard to be at 60 before you were like at 0?
kind of, but actually it was fun. You know, it was Hugh is such a great champion of this book. It's been his favorite book for 20 years, and so he was, and he and I were involved so early that actually he felt like a partner in every respect. And it was a really wonderful working relationship, actually.
Good.
It's fun when you play two characters who are in opposition like that. It's really fun.
What was he saying offset? He's quite the jokester.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that he did.
He's silly.
He is a highly irreverent man.
Yeah. Well, obviously this is an adaptation of a book, and you're familiar with doing adaptations of books. Is there a book that you would like to see adapted, or that you would adapt?
Ooh, not off the top of my head. I mean, most of my favorite books have been adapted, actually. Yeah. So, no, not that I can't think off the top of my head. Yeah.
We're going to go to some viewer questions.
Okay.
There was a lot about, and
Hi,
I think I
viewers.
missed something. Yes, hi, viewers.
Hi.
There was a lot of questions about jellyfish. And so, was there an incident on the set with a jellyfish?
Oh, God. Yes, okay.
Did you have any involvement with
No.
this? Because we've all seen the Friends episode. I didn't know if you had to do something like that.
We were, I think this story has been told by Tom Hollander.
Yes.
Happy to retell it. We were all swimming on a day off in Mallorca, and Tom had his goggles with him because he wanted to sort of see the little fish, and Elizabeth Debicki did not, and she asked to borrow his goggles, which he generously did. And then Tom Hollander, who plays Corky in the show, as many of you will remember, was stung by a jellyfish. And he then swam over to me and said, Tom, old boy, you don't mind, apparently when you've been stung by a jellyfish, you're supposed to pee on it. So would you mind, being a sport and doing the honours?
Did you?
I did, yeah. I mean, we all got very close on the set.
Do you think he prompted the jellyfish to do that just so you could do that?
Maybe. I feel like
figured that out?
He made a deal with a jellyfish just so he could get a good story out of it.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. No,
wow.
It was very funny. He asked Elizabeth to do the same.
That's friendship.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Do you think Jonathan Pine would do that?
I think Pine would think twice. I don't think Corky is as receptive as Tom Hollander to that kind of affection, basically.
We also got a lot of questions asking what types of research did you do? Did you meet with undercover people, intelligence
Well, the
officers?
thing about meeting with undercover intelligence officers is that you then blow their cover.
Yeah, you don't have to tell us who, but you did, right?
My lips are sealed. That would be telling.
Yeah. No?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
I didn't.
Okay. We're going to this one because the other one froze. But what was the hardest scene to film in The Night Manager?
Oh,
or
gosh.
Most traumatic or challenging? You got beaten in one.
Yeah.
Was that episode 1 or 2?
Episode 2, yeah. That was a very intense night. Those big fights are always intense because you need to sell. The thing about screen fighting is that the audience demands a kind of truthfulness to it. So you need to sell the every punch needs to feel like it lands, and that the responsibility is on the person throwing the punch and receiving it.
Right.
I think the hardest and the most adrenaline-inducing scene, honestly, is in episode 6 when the trucks explode.
Yeah.
We had explosives rigged in those trucks for real, and this was a one-er. We had to get this in one take. All the responses, all the action around that, Roper's reaction, Pine's reaction, and so we had to rehearse very, very carefully what the camera moves were going to be. But you never know what your response is going to be when there's a huge, explosion. And that was, I remember feeling like, literally we have one go at this.
So you were like,
yeah,
don't screw this up.
Yeah. It's so that, and also you don't know what the size of the explosion is going to be, and everyone's like, everything's been covered. Everything is appropriately, health and safety checked and insured. But you're staring down a huge explosion, and that was very. That was exciting.
Cool. We have one from Terry. If you had to write a continuation to Pine's story, where would he go and what would he do? Because I know there had been questions if it would come back, and I don't think it is, but if you could have a hand in where his story would be going, what would it be?
I don't know. There is the question of what happens to the 300 million and where does that go?
Right.
Because there's $300 million at the end of The Night Manager in an account owned by Andrew Birch.
Right.
I
take it. Yeah.
I think I spoke about this with Le Carre actually. I I think the first challenge is for him, would be trying to re-enter the world. What is his name?
Mm-hmm.
Where does he live? Who does he trust? And I was thinking actually the other day about the Hurt Locker, about the character Jeremy Renner plays in that, and that maybe he actually finds a kind of normal life difficult to adjust to because he's been living within the jaws of the beast,
Mm-hmm.
and that he's become accustomed to something with much greater intensity. So I wonder, it's interesting to think about.
Give him a name. It's so cool to pick a name.
I can't pick. I have to think about it. He might stick with the tree thing. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'll think of something.
And I don't mean to ask a really personal question, but I feel like I would be remiss not to. But can you talk to me about the Robert Downey Jr. relationship?
Well, Robert and I, we're very close. And I got to know him working on The Avengers back in 2011. We shot that. There's a lot of mutual affection. There's a lot of, we
had some things to say with your Instagram arrival.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
It's really, I feel like it's an expression of mutual admiration.
Yeah.
It's great. He's very sweet. And within the Marvel universe, there's a lot of that goes about.
Yeah.
A lot of kind of, throwing paper airplanes over the wall.
And I hear you're good at impressions too. Have you started doing impressions of Mark or Chris?
I couldn't. Yeah.
But you do them though, right?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. I'd have to work on them.
Okay.
But yeah, those guys are great. I've just come from Australia where I was working with Mark and Chris,
Mm-hmm.
and we're having the best time.
The wig. Everyone was talking when you posted that photo.
Were they?
Yes.
It's a wig.
We thought you'd be wearing it here.
I'm
but
sorry.
Yeah.
You've
But
actually got you've
have
got the
it.
right length of.
You could borrow mine.
I think you probably need it for your life, though, right? Yeah.
We could switch.
People would notice, I think, if you didn't have your hair suddenly.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I can't pull off a pixie cut, but and talk to
I
us
don't know
about
that I can either, to be honest. While we're on the subject.
talk to us about Kong too, because everyone's talking about that as well.
Yeah, well, that's coming out in March,
Yeah.
and it's just so exciting. So excited to see it because we shot for 6 months in Hawaii and Vietnam and in Australia, and of course, the thing I haven't seen yet is
the actual
Kong.
Yeah.
I spent days and weeks imagining him and interacting with where he's going to be, and that's the exciting thing, is to suddenly see him.
He was always the character that gave me the heebie-jeebies.
Why?
Because that ride at Universal, and before it got updated, it was this animatronic, but it I would scream.
Really?
Scream.
I don't remember that from the Universal thing.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, he's Kong is an icon.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in movies for longer than anybody.
Yes,
so.
that's true.
Huge
That's
diva.
true.
Never comes out of
Huge
his
diva,
out of his trailer.
Yeah.
Has John Goodman used to joke that he has an assistant called Jerry who always jumps the line at lunch. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
Who are you looking forward to seeing on Emmys night?
All sorts of people. So thrilled that Hugh and Olivia and Susanna have been nominated as well, and the show too. Can't wait to catch up with Idris and Benedict, both of whom are old friends and I've worked with before. So that'll be exciting. Who else do I know?
Have you been able to binge anything lately? You don't have time.
I haven't really.
Yeah.
I really want to.
Uh-huh.
I haven't. So I should do that. I should get on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay.
And are you taking Kong as a date, or are you still deciding?
Yeah, I think he's just. The last time I spoke to him, he's really trying to figure out what to wear.
What to wear. It might be hard to dress him.
It's pressure. You know what I mean?
Yes.
He's. There's this. Also, it's like coming back to America. Since the whole Empire State Building thing, it's it's emotional for him.
We'll have a talk with him.
Okay.
But we wish you luck on the big night.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for taking the time to join us.
Thank you.
Join us here. And for you guys, thanks so much for
Thanks,
tuning
everybody.
in.